Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that constantly pressures us to take control of everything, to plan every moment, and to dictate our own path. We are told to be self-reliant, to always have an answer, and to never let go of what we believe is ours to command. But the truth is, we cannot control everything. We cannot foresee every twist in the road, every challenge that lies ahead, or every opportunity that might present itself. We can try, we can plan, and we can work hard, but ultimately it is God who holds the keys to our destiny. It is time to recognize the illusion of control. We think that by holding on tight, by managing every detail, we can dictate the outcome of our lives. But the reality is that no matter how much we plan, no matter how much we push, life has its own rhythm, its own flow, and sometimes the best thing we can do is step back and let go. You see, life is not a machine that we can program and manipulate. It is a journey, one that unfolds in ways we cannot always predict. When we attempt to control every aspect of it, we limit the possibilities and close ourselves off to the greater plan that God has for us. The first step to finding peace and purpose is to recognize that we cannot control everything. And then we must make a choice to trust. Trusting God is not always easy, especially when we don't understand why things are happening the way they are. But trust is the foundation of faith. When we leave everything in God's hands, we are acknowledging that His wisdom far exceeds our own. We are saying, God, I believe that you know what's best for me. I may not understand the journey, but I trust that you will lead me in the right direction. This is the ultimate act of faith, relinquishing control, knowing that God's plan for us is greater, more profound, and more purposeful than anything we could ever imagine. It is in trusting God that we find peace, because we no longer carry the burden of figuring it all out. We know that we are in the hands of a loving and all-knowing Creator. And when we choose to trust, we also choose to surrender. Now, surrender does not mean defeat. It does not mean weakness. It means letting go of our own plans and submitting to a higher purpose. Surrender is freedom. When we release our desire to control every outcome, we open ourselves to the flow of God's will, which is always moving us toward growth, success, and fulfillment. The moment we surrender, we are free from the weight of anxiety, fear, and uncertainty. We no longer need to worry about whether or not things will work out, because we trust that God is guiding us and that He will never lead us astray. But it's important to understand that surrender also involves patience. God's timing is perfect, even when we cannot see it. Sometimes we may feel as though things are delayed or that we are stuck in a season of waiting. But we must remember that God's timing is always right. What seems like a delay to us is often a preparation for something greater. God is not bound by our clocks or calendars. His plan for us is not confined to our human understanding of time. So when you feel as though your prayers are unanswered or your progress is slow, remember that God is preparing you for something far beyond what you can currently perceive. What may seem like a setback is simply a setup for something even greater. Finally, when we leave everything in God's hands, we align ourselves with His will. It is in surrendering that we find our true purpose. We are not meant to live our lives solely for ourselves or for the fleeting desires of this world. We were created with a higher calling, and that calling can only be fulfilled when we submit our will to God's. When we choose to follow His guidance, we walk in alignment with the divine purpose that He has set out for us. And it is in this alignment that we find fulfillment, peace, and the true joy of living in accordance with His plan. So, I urge you today, stop trying to control everything. Let go of the weight that you are carrying. Trust that God knows what's best for you, even when you can't see it. Surrender to His will and embrace the freedom that comes with it. Remember that His timing is perfect and that He is always leading you towards something greater than you can imagine. Leave everything in His hands and watch as He transforms your life, guiding you toward a future full of purpose, peace, and divine fulfillment. We live in a world that thrives on the illusion of control. From the moment we wake up, we are taught to manage everything: our time, our relationships, our careers, our emotions. Society tells us that to be successful, to be happy, to be secure, we must be in charge at all times. We feel the pressure to keep every detail in place, to have answers for every question, to direct the course of our lives with precision. And while planning and preparation are important, there comes a point when we must recognize that, in reality, we are not in control as much as we think we are. The illusion of control is powerful because it makes us feel safe. It gives us a false sense of power over the unpredictability of life. It convinces us that if we just work hard enough, plan well enough, or push strongly enough, we can avoid failure, heartbreak, or disappointment. But the truth is, life does not unfold neatly according to our plans. Life is dynamic, fluid, and often unpredictable. No matter how much we anticipate, no matter how much we try to engineer our circumstances, there are things beyond our grasp, forces we cannot foresee, events we cannot control. The sooner we realize this, the sooner we can experience freedom. You see, this illusion of control often traps us in cycles of stress, anxiety, and frustration. We expend endless energy trying to manage things that are outside of our control. We worry about the future, obsess over decisions, and agonize over what others think. We hold on so tightly to the reins of life that we forget what it means to trust. Trust is the opposite of control. Trust says, I don't have all the answers, but I believe that there is a greater force, a divine plan that will guide me to where I need to be. When we surrender to trust, we let go of the need to be the master of every circumstance. We allow ourselves to be carried by something greater than our own understanding. Think about the seasons in nature. We don't control the change of the seasons, nor can we dictate how or when they will occur. Yet they come. The seasons shift, the rains fall, the sun rises and sets. These forces move according to a greater order. And just like the seasons, there are forces in our lives beyond our control. Relationships grow and change, opportunities arise, challenges emerge, and things sometimes fall apart before they come together. We don't always understand why, and we certainly cannot force it to go the way we want. But when we learn to stop fighting against it, we begin to understand that everything has its place in the grand design. Control is an illusion, but trust in the flow of life is real. And it is in that trust that we find peace. Think of the wisdom that comes from releasing control. When we let go of our need to dictate every outcome, we free ourselves from the weight of worrying. We allow ourselves to experience life as it unfolds, unpredictable, challenging, yet full of beauty and potential. The paradox is that by relinquishing control, we gain far more. We open ourselves to the unexpected blessings, the lessons hidden in hardship, the opportunities we never saw coming. The universe or God or whatever force you believe in has a way of working things out in ways we cannot even imagine. When we let go, we open the door to a higher power at work in our lives, guiding us toward our true path. The illusion of control also blinds us to our own growth. We often think that by managing everything, we can protect ourselves from pain, failure, or loss. But it is through these very experiences that we grow. It is in the moments when we cannot control the outcome that we are shaped and refined. These moments challenge our resilience, strengthen our character, and teach us to rely not on our own abilities, but on something much greater. The best parts of our character emerge when we let go of the illusion of control and allow ourselves to be transformed by life itself. To live with the illusion of control is to live in constant tension with the unknown, fighting a battle we can never truly win. But to release that illusion, to let go of the need to master every aspect of our lives, is to open ourselves to peace, possibility, and profound change. The more we surrender, the more we allow ourselves to be present in the moment. And it is in that presence that we experience the richness of life. When we relinquish control, we find true freedom, not in the absence of challenges, but in the acceptance of the journey as it is. The question is not how much we can control, but how much we are willing to trust. Trusting God is one of the most powerful choices we can make in our lives, yet it's often the hardest. We live in a world that glorifies control, self-sufficiency, and certainty, and we are taught to rely on our own strength, understanding, and wisdom. But the truth is, when we rely only on ourselves, we limit our potential. There is something far greater at work in the universe than our own limited comprehension, and trusting in that higher power unlocks the fullest potential of who we were created to be. When we place our trust in God, we open the door to a life that is far beyond what we could ever plan or orchestrate on our own. Trusting God is not about blind faith, it's about acknowledging the truth that God's wisdom and love for us are greater than anything we could ever possess. It's understanding that He sees the bigger picture, the one that we can't fully comprehend, and that His guidance is infinitely more reliable than our own human understanding. When we trust God, we accept that His plans are always better than our own, even when we don't see how or why. And in that trust, we find peace, a peace that transcends circumstances, that holds us steady when life feels uncertain, and that enables us to walk through challenges with grace. Trust doesn't mean that life will always go the way we expect it to. In fact, the path we take may not always look anything like what we imagined. There will be moments of doubt, there will be setbacks, there will be moments when it feels as though nothing is going right. But trusting God means understanding that these moments are not signs of failure, but opportunities for growth, strength, and deeper dependence on Him. It means trusting that even in the hard times, God is still in control, and that every challenge we face has a purpose, even if we don't see it immediately. God does not waste pain. He uses it to shape us, to refine us, and to prepare us for what's ahead. When we trust in His plan, we don't have to fear the future, because we know that He is always working things together for our good. To trust God is to surrender control. And this surrender is not about weakness, it is about strength. The strength to admit that we are not in charge and that we do not have all the answers. It takes immense strength to let go of our desire for control and allow God to lead us. In our world where we are constantly bombarded with messages telling us that we must have it all figured out, trusting God is an act of rebellion against the lie that we must do everything on our own. Trusting God is acknowledging that we are not the masters of our own fate and that we are okay with that. We don't need to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. God is carrying it for us. There is power in trusting God. It frees us from the anxiety of having to control every outcome. It frees us from the fear of what might happen next. When we trust God, we let go of the need for perfection, the need for certainty, the need for everything to go according to our own plan. And in that surrender, we find a freedom that is not dependent on circumstances, a peace that is not shaken by storms, and a joy that comes from knowing that we are in the hands of a loving Father who will never leave us or forsake us. As we learn to trust, we become more attuned to God's voice, more sensitive to His guidance, and more aligned with His will for our lives. Trusting God becomes not just a decision, but a way of living. It becomes the foundation upon which everything else is built: our relationships, our work, our dreams, and our journey. When we trust God, we unlock the power to live with purpose, knowing that we are never alone and that His plans for us are always better than our own. Trusting God is the ultimate act of faith, and it is the key to living a life of peace, joy, and fulfillment. Surrender brings a freedom that most of us in our pursuit to control every detail rarely experience. We live in a world that celebrates self-reliance, control, and autonomy, pushing us to believe that only by holding on tightly, by managing every outcome, can we find success or peace. But what if I told you that true freedom, real peace, and lasting joy are found not in control, but in surrender? It is a radical idea, yet it is one that opens the door to a life filled with more meaning, less stress, and an immeasurable sense of fulfillment. Surrendering is not a passive act, nor is it a sign of weakness. In fact, surrender takes immense courage. It takes strength to release the grip we have on our lives, to let go of the reins and to say, I trust in something greater than myself. It is an act of bravery to release control, to step back and allow life to unfold as it will. When we surrender, we are not giving up control to chaos. We are giving up control to a higher power, a wisdom that goes beyond our understanding. And in that surrender, we find freedom from worry, from stress, from the incessant need to control every detail. We find freedom from the idea that our worth is tied to our ability to make everything happen on our own. Imagine carrying a heavy load day in and day out, the weight of every decision, every responsibility, every expectation pressing down on your shoulders. Now imagine setting that load down, feeling the weight lifted, feeling your shoulders relax, your spirit lighten. That is the freedom that surrender brings. It is the freedom to live in the moment, to be present, to experience life without the constant burden of control. When we surrender, we open ourselves to the flow of life, to the beauty of what is, rather than constantly striving for what we think should be. We become free to enjoy the journey, to appreciate the small moments, to see the beauty in the unexpected, because we are no longer confined by the rigid walls of our own expectations. Surrender brings freedom because it aligns us with a higher purpose. When we let go, we are saying, I trust that my life has meaning, that my journey has purpose, even if I cannot see it right now. And in that trust, we find a profound sense of peace. We are no longer consumed by the need to force outcomes, to make things happen according to our own timelines. Instead, we are able to rest in the assurance that life is unfolding exactly as it should. This doesn't mean that we stop working toward our goals or that we abandon our dreams. Rather, it means that we pursue them with an open heart, willing to let go of the outcome, trusting that what is meant for us will come and what is not meant for us will pass. This is the essence of freedom, to live fully, passionately, without the chains of control holding us back. In surrendering, we also open ourselves to growth. When we let go of the need to control every situation, we allow life to teach us, to shape us, to mold us in ways we never could have anticipated. We become open to change, to transformation, to new possibilities that we might never have considered if we were clinging tightly to our own plans. This is the beauty of surrender. It frees us from the limitations of our own minds, from the boundaries we place on ourselves, and it allows us to step into a life that is bigger, richer, and more meaningful than anything we could have designed on our own. Surrendering is an invitation to grow, to expand, to evolve, and to discover parts of ourselves that we never knew existed. Surrender brings freedom, and that freedom leads us to a life of joy, peace, and purpose. It allows us to live not in fear, but in trust. Not in stress, but in peace. Not in confinement, but in openness to the vast, beautiful possibilities that life has to offer. When we surrender, we are not losing control. We are gaining a life that is free, abundant, and aligned with something far greater than ourselves. And in that life, we find a joy that goes beyond circumstances, a peace that surpasses understanding, and a freedom that is boundless, endless, and truly liberating. There's something truly powerful, almost incomprehensible about the concept of God's timing. We live in a world that urges us to hurry, to rush, to make things happen on our own schedule. And yet, when we step back and take a moment to look at life's bigger picture, we begin to see that there is an order to it all, a divine order, one that exists beyond our understanding. God's timing is perfect, though we often struggle to see it in the midst of our own impatience and worry. In our lives, we face moments that feel like they're dragging on far too long, periods when we feel as if our progress is halted, or times when we feel as though we're missing out because things aren't unfolding as quickly as we'd hoped. Yet, when we learn to trust that every delay, every pause, every not yet is part of God's greater plan, we begin to find peace even in the waiting. You see, God sees what we cannot see. While we focus on the here and now, God is looking ahead, seeing beyond today into tomorrow and far into our future. He knows what's around the corner, even when we feel lost. The moments we think of as delays are often moments of preparation. We may not realize it, but there are blessings that we are not yet ready for, doors that we need to grow before we can walk through. Sometimes we're so focused on the next step that we forget the value of the place we're currently standing in. But God's timing teaches us patience, endurance, and most importantly, faith. It teaches us to believe in things we cannot yet see and to trust that when the time is right, everything will come together. Many of us can look back at times in our lives when we were frustrated because something wasn't happening fast enough, only to realize later on that the wait was worth it. Perhaps there was a job we didn't get, a relationship that ended, or an opportunity that fell through. At the time, it felt like a setback, but later we can see that it was exactly what needed to happen. That closed door was leading us to a better path, one that we couldn't see in the moment. God was orchestrating something greater, something we could not have planned on our own. And so as we trust in God's timing, we develop a sense of peace, knowing that we don't have to rush or force things to happen. We begin to understand that what is meant for us will come, but it will come at the right time, God's time. This journey of trusting God's timing requires a shift in perspective. It requires us to release our own timeline and embrace His. This doesn't mean we don't have goals, dreams, or ambitions. It simply means that we are willing to surrender the when and the how to God. It means being patient in the wait, knowing that every step we take is bringing us closer to the right moment. We may not understand why certain things take longer than others, but in those moments, we can rest in the fact that God is working behind the scenes. He's aligning people, circumstances, and resources to bring about His best for us. When we try to rush ahead, we risk disrupting that process. We may feel tempted to push open doors that aren't ready to be opened, but when we let go and trust, we find that the doors God opens are far greater than anything we could have forced on our own. In those times of waiting, God often uses the quiet to prepare us. He's refining us, shaping us, molding us into the people we need to be to receive His blessings fully. Sometimes we need to grow before we can step into the next chapter. There may be things we need to learn, areas we need to develop, or even old wounds we need to heal. When we trust in God's timing, we allow ourselves to be made whole. We embrace the growth that comes with patience, and we develop a deeper sense of faith, not only in God's plan, but in His love for us. God does not withhold good things from us out of cruelty. He does it out of love, knowing that there is a time and a season for everything. And when the time is right, His blessings will overflow. But we must also remember that God's timing is not always comfortable. There will be times of waiting that feel endless, times of uncertainty when we wonder if we've been forgotten. We may look around and see others moving forward, achieving their dreams, and wonder why our path looks different. But that's when faith becomes our anchor. We trust that God knows us intimately, that He has designed our journey uniquely, and that we are right where we need to be. Even in the quiet moments, even in the waiting, God is working within us and around us. And the beauty of it all is that when we finally step into what He has prepared for us, we can look back and see that every moment, every delay, every closed door was a part of the process, leading us to something greater than we could have ever orchestrated on our own. Trusting God's timing is an act of surrender and of faith. It is a reminder that we are not alone on this journey, that we are guided by a loving Creator who knows our hearts and our needs better than we do. And as we let go of our need to control the timing of our lives, we find peace, we find joy, we find that we are able to live more fully in each moment, knowing that our future is in God's hands and that He will lead us exactly where we are meant to go. So when you feel the urge to rush, when you feel frustrated by delays, remember that God's timing is perfect and He is never late. And so as we come to the close of this reflection on God's timing, let us remember this life's journey is not ours to map out alone. Every delay, every closed door, every moment of stillness has a purpose beyond what we can see. Trusting God's timing means surrendering our plans and expectations, knowing that He is crafting something extraordinary, something perfectly aligned with who we are meant to become. As you step forward, choose to let go of worry, to release the need to control every outcome, and to allow yourself to grow in patience and faith. Trust that the God who brought you this far will carry you through every season at exactly the right time. Know that He walks with you, guiding each step, and that in His perfect timing you will see blessings unfold in ways beyond your wildest imagination. Hold on to that hope, for in it lies a peace that only God can give, a peace that tells us our journey is safe in His hands.